We are still at the rock shelf. It is the same day. The interval is still running underfoot, and the amber light is still present in the guidelines, and the half-cut mark is still in the stone exactly where the cutting stopped. I have not moved the keys. They are in my jacket pocket and the canvas bag separated, the same as they have been since we stepped back from the fitting. Hannah has been sitting on the shelf 3 meters from the fitting for 20 minutes with her notepad. I have been recording. Maren has not spoken since her line about the system recording what it has. She is at the edge of the shelf again, facing the water, which is either a navigational habit or something she does when she wants to think without being watched while she does it. I'm going to describe what Hannah is doing and then describe what she found, because the order matters. The conclusion is not the point. The route to the conclusion is the point, because the route is what makes the conclusion trustworthy rather than convenient. Hannah started with the half-cut mark itself. She copied the geometry into her notepad, not a sketch, a tracing. She held the pad flat at stone level and transferred the arc angles and the stopping points as precisely as she could without touching the stone. The arc geometry on the south side corresponds to the second key's guide arc. The north side corresponds to key 47's arc. Both halves are identical in their angles and proportions. Bilateral symmetry confirmed, as I noted last episode. What Hannah is doing now is not reconfirming the symmetry. She is measuring the stopping distance, 4 centimeters short of center on both sides. I already had that number. She is rederiving it independently and getting the same result, which is not redundant. It is confirmation. When two methods produce the same measurement, the measurement becomes reliable. She marks the stopping points on her tracing. She draws a line connecting them, a line that runs horizontally across the geometry at the point where both arcs terminated. That line defines the boundary of the incomplete section. The space below that line between the two stopping points and the center mass point is the section the stone has not written. She looks at that section for a long time. Then she opens to a different page in her notepad, a page from 2 days ago when she was working the syntax analysis of the organized marks on the left side of the face. She did not write much on that page, mostly tracings and measurements, the same kind of work she is doing now. But there is one notation at the bottom of the page, circled, that I can read from where I am sitting even upside down. 3 points. She had written 3 convergence points and circled it and drawn lines from it to 2 separate mark tracings in the organized section. She had seen this before, not in the fitting, in the existing syntax marks. She identified a 3-point convergence structure in the organized section 2 days ago and circled it and filed it and did not yet know what to do with it. She knows now. She brings the syntax tracing and the fitting tracing together on the same page, overlaying them by eye, adjusting the scale until the proportions match. She does this twice, then a third time with a different alignment. On the third attempt, she holds it and looks at it without moving. I ask her what she has. She says, the syntax marks use a 3-point convergence structure, 2 descending arcs and a third point at the base. She shows me the page. The overlay is not perfect, the scale adjustment is approximate, but the structural relationship is clear. The 2 arcs in the fitting match the 2 arcs in the syntax mark. The third point in the syntax mark is what's missing from the fitting. I look at the overlay. The third point in the existing syntax marks is not at the end of the 2 arcs. It is at the base of the converging geometry, set slightly below and between them, a separate element that both arcs reach toward but do not touch. The arcs define the approach. The third point is what they are approaching. I look at the center mass point in the fitting. The amber light there, brightest in the whole geometry, the point that has been lit since the guidelines first illuminated. The point the amber arcs run toward and stop short of. The center mass point is not the intersection of the 2 arcs. It is the third point. defined by the space between them, not by their meeting. The two arcs were never meant to touch each other. They were meant to define a position between them. A position. I write, center mass point is not intersection of arcs. It is a third independent coordinate. Arcs define approach to third point. Third point requires independent element to complete the geometry. Hannah is looking at the fitting from her sitting position. Her eyes move between the fitting and the overlay on her notepad. She is not done yet. She says, the third point in the syntax marks, in the existing carved marks, is not a line. It is not a curve. It is a point, a single mark at a specific location. She pauses. In the syntax section, it represents something completing the statement, not extending it, not modifying it, the final element that makes the statement true. I ask if the geometry specifies what kind of element. She is quiet for a moment. She looks at the fitting, at the guidelines, at the amber light in the center mass point, at the amber arcs which illuminate the approach of each key but do not illuminate the center. She says, the guidelines are for the keys. There is no guideline for the center. She traces the arc geometry above the stone without touching it, her finger following the amber arcs down toward the center mass point where they stop. The amber prepared the key positions. It did not prepare the center position. She looks at where the third point should be. The system didn't put a guide there because what goes there doesn't need one. I follow that logic. The keys needed guides because they are specific objects, particular dimensions, particular orientations, particular manufactured artifacts that had to be placed in particular positions. The center mass point has no guide because whatever completes the geometry at that position does not need to be positioned by the stone. It brings its own positioning. It does not need to be told where to stand. It already knows. I look at the space between the two arc terminations, the empty area at the center of the fitting, the smooth stone below the amber arcs, undisturbed, waiting, large enough for a person to stand before it with both hands at their sides, the right size for a presence, not an object. Hannah sets down her notepad. She looks at the fitting with her hands in her lap. She is about to say something, and she is taking a moment before she says it, because she is that kind of person. She does not state conclusions until she has traced them from first principles and confirmed that the conclusion follows necessarily and not just plausibly. She says it isn't missing an artifact. She says it's missing a position. The stone vibration changes, not the interval. The interval keeps its 11-second count exactly as it has been running. The character of the vibration changes. The frequency I have been feeling through my boot soles, the low structural rhythm that I have documented as a single tone, separates. Two frequencies now. One continues unchanged, the 11-second count, the bass rhythm. The other is new, higher, a resonance that was not present before Hannah finished the sentence. I feel it before I look at anything. The new frequency runs up through the stone and into my feet, and I look down instinctively before I look at the fitting or the device or Maren. The stone under my boots is vibrating differently in two distinct zones. Under my left foot, directly. Under my right foot, the same. Both the same new frequency. Both beginning at the same moment. I step off the shelf onto the natural stone at the edge, and the new frequency stays under the shelf. It is not following me. It is in the shelf itself. I step back onto the shelf. Both frequencies return underfoot. I look at the fitting. The amber center mass point is brighter. Not dramatically, the same degree of brightening I documented when we brought the keys into the fitting geometry during the placement attempt. A confirmation degree. The system registering that something is correct. Nothing has changed in the fitting. The half-cut mark is exactly as it was. The two arcs stop 4 centimeters short of center. The center is still smooth and untouched. No new cutting, no resumed mark formation. But the amber point is brighter, and the stone is running 2 frequencies where it was running 1. The system registered Hannah's statement. not the conclusion she reached, the completion of the reasoning. The moment the geometry was correctly understood, the stone felt the understanding arrive, and it acknowledged it. I look at Hannah. She is very still, watching the center mass point. I look at the device, still in the canvas bag at the edge of the shelf. From inside the bag, through the canvas, the tone has changed. The witness note, the stable single frequency the device has been holding since it was downgraded from reader to observer, now has a second component, a harmonic. The same higher frequency that entered the stone. The device is registering the same event. I write, system acknowledged the geometric realization. 2 frequencies now in stone. Device harmonic matches. No new cutting. Center mass point brighter. System recognized the understanding before any physical change occurred. Maren turns from the water. She does not come toward the fitting. She does not speak. She looks at the center mass point, at the brightness there, at the 2 arcs descending toward it. She looks at the space below the arc terminations, the space that has no guideline, the space the amber did not prepare because what goes there does not need preparation. She looks at me, then at Hannah, then back at the center. The interval runs, the stone holds its 2 frequencies. The center mass point stays bright. The half-cut mark waits in the stone with both arcs 4 centimeters short of a point that the system has just confirmed it already knows how to receive. Nobody has moved yet.